How's it going? This is Bob. Just wanted to do a quick tips and tricks video with the USGI ACU Digital Camo Modular Sleep System. This is the newer version. There's a Woodland Camo, which was issued years ago, and that was replaced with this one. But they're pretty much the same. Some of the tips and tricks I wanted to go over, some I use, some I don't, but I just thought I'd throw them out there and you guys can take it or leave it. First of all, if you're not familiar with the system, it's got a Gore-Tex bivy cover, a lighter patrol bag layer, it goes down to 30 degrees, and then it's got an intermediate bag which will go down to -10. You combine the whole system together to get down to -20, and if you layer up you can go a little further than that. I think that's a little generous, but that comes to the first tip. The first thing you want to do when you get one of these is you need to test out your system, especially if you're getting it used. You're going to want to see how it works for you. First of all, everyone sleeps different. Some people sleep hot, some people sleep cold. You don't know how your bag was treated, and you don't know what conditions will work for you or how it's going to feel in those conditions. So you got to test it out. Test it out at home, test it out in your backyard. Just make sure you know your bag. Another tip, if it's still not warm enough for you, there's a few things you can do. The number one thing would be a ground pad. It's essential to have a ground pad when you're using one of these. First of all, it's more comfortable. Second of all, an insulated ground pad will help keep that heat from escaping. Secondly, that ground pad can be a wool blanket. I've seen a lot of people suggest using wool blankets. They can be warm. If you forget a pad, you don't want to do that, but if you do, find leaves, pine needles, things like that, put it underneath, because you're going to want to be warm. You can also kind of adjust it to get like your sleeping position. With your pad, if you bring your pad, which you should always do, you can keep it in between the bivy and your sleeping bag inside. That way, if you're moving around, it will stay underneath you. One caution with that is if you do move around a lot, or maybe you sleep on your side, it will also limit your bag movement, which isn't always the best. So I have a really stiff pad that I've slept in with this, and when I try to move my legs, I feel kind of constricted, and it won't actually let me move and bend the bag how I want. So if you are always finding yourself off of your pad, it's better to stay on your pad and feel constricted than it is to like be off it completely and be freezing cold. I think the best reason I use a wool blanket with this would be to maybe protect it from a fire. If you want to set it up close to a fire, they're not fireproof. You don't want to get them close to flames at all. Any embers will land on this, put holes in. It is Gore-Tex, waterproof, and it is breathable, which is very nice. That's another little tip though. Sometimes it's a little too breathable. I've had it in 35-mile-an-hour winds before, and it's almost like you feel a draft. Like it's that breathable. So if you are going to be in higher wind conditions, I would suggest bringing a tarp. I would suggest that anyway, so that it can protect it from stuff on the ground, but a tarp will also help give you that initial protection from the wind. It'll still breathe. If you are planning on camping out in windy temperatures, find a natural windbreak. Find like maybe a big rock or some trees, while at the same time looking out for widow makers, loose dead branches that could fall, crush you, trees that could tip over and ruin your life. That's probably the number one tip. Not die. You don't want to die while being out in the wilderness, so not dying is definitely good, and those are some ways to not die. Some storage tips. It's always good to keep your sleeping bags stored loosely. Another little tip is if it gets too cold, maybe it's a little too cold for you, wear a good base layer. You can buy each part of the system separately. You could buy an extra patrol bag and put it in with your system, and that'll help raise the temperature as well. It's not very light. I don't think it's a huge deal because you are getting a complete sleep system. You don't need a tent, and it's so versatile that you can use it in the summer and in the winter. If it's freezing or raining outside, it's nice to keep your clothes inside the bivy itself. You don't want to get your bags wet, and you don't want to get in it wet. It's definitely good to get in warm, because it'll help keep you warm. But if you get in cold, it's going to take a little time to get warm. But it's also good to keep your clothes dry and warm. And keeping them inside of this bivy layer, maybe off to the side, out of the way, it really will help keep them a little warmer. Also, you could use this stuff sack to keep the stuff inside of it, inside the bivy. That way it'll help keep your bag clean. You could also use the stuff sack if you have dirty boots and you want to keep them on. Put your boots inside the stuff sack and put that inside the bag while you're sleeping in it. That way it'll help keep your bag clean inside, which is important because you want to keep these bags clean because you don't want to have to wash them that often. That will subject it to wear and tear from washing it. You just want to keep it as clean as possible. I mean, that they're going to get dirty, especially if you're using them, but keeping them clean will help them last a little longer for you. At some point, you're probably going to need to wash the bag, especially if you're buying it used. A lot of times they just come and they're stinky. That's terrible. I had one that came with like blood on the bottom of it. And so you're going to probably want to wash it. You're going to want to use like a really mild detergent, like a liquid detergent, something like Dreft or Ivory, something that not going to damage the fabric, or bleach it. Definitely don't want to use any bleach. It also has instructions for washing on each of the separate systems. So just look down there. The bivy itself, you're going to want to air dry that till it's completely dry. I know with other Gore-Tex products, if you need to revive it, then you throw it in the dryer for like the lowest possible temperature setting for like 20 minutes. But I've done that. It works great still. So just FYI on that. If you're a little claustrophobic, or you like having a little more space around your face, or maybe you're going into like a deep winter condition, you're expecting snow and you don't want the bag to like smash your face when you wake up, I would use some sort of plastic piece to keep it off your face. I just have this little plastic piece I found. I stick it inside of the bivy itself with some little protectors on the piece there, and it holds it off my face. It takes a little messing around, but it'll hold it off of your face. And then if you do get a little weight, it'll keep that off your face too. That's also helpful in the wind. Okay, so another tip: if you are going to be sleeping in extreme cold weather conditions, you may want, it sounds gross, a pee bottle. You're not going to want to get out in that freezing cold snow, and you're not going to want to lose that heat, especially if it's a blizzard or things are coming down and it's getting really cold. You're going to want to keep that heat. So a pee bottle, we'll just leave it at that. You can think about that one. Remember, you're camouflaged. I don't know if you guys can see it right now, but the bag is actually right here. It's in the shot. So the camo's that good. If you camp out on a game trail, those deer, those elk, who knows, they may not see you. Like, you're not going to want to get stepped on. So find a place that's off a trail, not too close to the water, because you don't want to be extra cold. If you have the whole system, or you find yourself in a situation where you are extremely hot, maybe you didn't need the whole thing, you can regulate by unzipping down here, and you can find your perfect temperature when you're doing this. So that's always nice, because you don't want to sleep hot, just like you don't want to sleep cold. Also, if you're gonna stuff it instead of roll it, start at the base of the sack, start at the foot of the bag, and start stuffing from that, so you don't end up with this giant air bubble that you're trying to compress down. Especially with this waterproof bivy, you're gonna get like this giant air bubble, and it's going to create problems when you're trying to force the air out of here, because you don't want to do that. You don't want to create, you don't want to split the seams and things like that on this waterproof bivy. They recommend rolling it on their site, but you can stuff it, you can roll it. The key element, I think, the most important thing is to not keep it compressed, to keep it compressed as little as possible. If you need to compress it, or you need that space, it's not a big deal, but just uncompress it when you can, and definitely don't store it compressed. There's plenty of great bags out there. It's this whole system put together that's awesome. To be able to go out under the stars, and if it starts raining, I can just pull the bivy up over my face and I'm fine. If you're thinking about getting one and you haven't got it yet, they're not for everyone. If you're always going to be in a tent, I don't really see the need. If you're only going to camp in the winter or only going to camp in the summer, even if weight is an issue, it's still a good bag in some situations. But if you can afford the higher priced items and the different pieces, and you're going to sleep in a tent all the time, you may not even want this. But to find one of these used in excellent condition on like eBay or something, it's a great option. For the price, you just can't beat it. If you're going to buy a tent, if you're going to buy a cold weather bag and a warm weather bag, throw all those together and then compare it to the weight on this. That's what you're going to have to compare this to. But yeah, it is close to like 10 pounds. It's a little lighter than the Woodland Camo one. Even though they still make the Woodland Camo new, a lot of the previously issued ones are definitely going to be older than these ACU Digital Camo ones. So if you're getting an issued one, it's gonna be older, and it may not be as high quality at this point because of just time. The price was a little less for the Woodland Camo. You can get out there, you can throw it in a hammock. So one of the greatest parts about this system is its durability, how modular it is. So 4-season camping, it's just so quick to deploy, to get in, to go. If you're hunting, you know, keep your gun in by you. That keeps it out of the elements. It's protected. Like, definitely don't keep a bullet in the chamber, because that's crazy while you're sleeping. If you are taller than 6 feet, you might be a little snug in it. I'm 5'11", 190, and it is just right for me. I mean, I feel like I have plenty of room to move around. I definitely think if I was a couple inches taller, it'd be tight. It's a great system. You know, treat it right, it's going to treat you right, and just have a lot of fun out there. Another tip, always keep a thermal blanket. They're super light, super cheap. Throw one inside the stuff sack and keep it with it all the time. That way, if for some reason you forget a pad or it's just extra cold, this little thermal blanket's gonna make you feel a lot better. Those extra cold nights, hand warmers. Just toss a couple of these in your feet on those extra cold nights. It'll help keep you warm. Have some hot chocolate or eat a lot. Get some calories in you before you go to bed. That way your body can produce that heat, because you know this isn't going to produce the heat itself. You got to do that. It'll help keep it there for you, but you're going to have to do that for yourself. Hey, thanks for watching. I hope some of those tips help you out. Fire's bad. Once again, still bad. Fire is still bad. If you have more tips, I would love to hear them. Throw some down in the comments below. That way we can all benefit, you know, help each other out. You didn't even see me. You didn't even see me there. You didn't know I was there. Oh, camo.